Hi everybody, this is Jim. I've got a couple of copies of Where the Wild Things Are here that I'm going to use to just to go through all of the parts of a picture book and demonstrate what those are for everyone. So parts of a picture book, and I'm using the handout that should be available to everyone. I'll see if I can post it here on YouTube as well as it being in Blackboard. Visual elements in picture books. I'm going to go through this first part here that's just the parts of a book, and we'll put up a separate little lecture for the visual arts elements and illustration techniques and so on. So with Where the Wild Things Are, the very first thing is that you've got two different cover elements here. So you've got a hardcover or board cover, and you've got a soft cover or paper cover here. So on a hardcover book or a board cover book, usually there is a dust jacket, at least when the book is new. So sometimes at a library the dust jacket is just gone, or the dust jacket might be wrapped in plastic. But that dust jacket is something that's there to protect the board cover. It makes these books just a little bit more expensive and so on. And sometimes what's underneath the dust jacket is not the same as what's on the front. On this copy of Where the Wild Things Are, you've got more or less the same illustration on the inside and the outside. And the cover has a front cover and a rear cover as well. So sometimes this front cover is different from the dust jacket, and sometimes this rear cover is illustrated with something different as well. For Where the Wild Things Are, you can see that it's a consistent illustration that covers the entire spread of the cover there. Same thing that you see on the dust jacket. Now the other element of a dust jacket that you may be familiar with is the dust jacket has these flaps, and the flaps usually have information on it, either information about the book or information about the book and the author. So Maurice Sendak is described over on this side over here. So, all right. So those are some things about the cover. The spine is the bit here that brings the two sides of the cover together. And on a hardcover book, that's still the same piece of board that's kind of been folded together here. Well, I guess on this one you've got a cloth spine here that joins the two pieces of board together, then another little piece of board that goes down the spine itself. And if you open up a book like this to the center of the pages that are stitched in here, you would see that this is a stitched kind of book, and I'm going to see if I can get that open to just the right page there. So this is the page in a hardcover book, and I'm going to just pull it all the way in here and show you down in the gutter. Can I get you to see it? Down in the gutter, there we go. In the gutter you can see that this is stitched together with thread. So the spine is glued then to the signatures of paper, and that's a term that I put out there too, signatures of pages. It's usually a stack of 16 pages or 8 pieces of paper folded together. That's a really typical signature. For Where the Wild Things Are, I think we've got 12 to create a signature that has about 24 pages in it. That's really unusual today. Most picture book authors and illustrators today will tell us that they get about 32 pages to do their storyboard in, so getting 48 pages is really unusual, like in Where the Wild Things Are. Let's see. The signatures can be made of paper or of board, and I think I've got a couple of copies here of board books. So a board book is usually a preschooler book that's made entirely out of board, cardboard, and the signatures are a little bit different there, and the spine is handled differently too because the entire thing is made out of cardboard. So let's see. Trim refers to the page size. So the page size here is kind of an unusual one. This is sort of a wide format, and it's typical for a picture book to be in this sort of size range. But this is a really wide picture book. A lot of picture books that get published today don't get as wide of a format. The paper cover of this one is about the same width, so it still gets the same treatment, and that has to do with the proportions of the illustrations that the illustrator originally turned in. That really has a lot to do with the trim size, the size of the paper that's been chosen. End sheets are important, much more important in a hardcover book, because the end sheet is what glues the signature to the board. So there's paper at the end of the first signature that comes over and folds onto this board, and it's entirely glued on. You can see the edges there where the end sheet is glued onto the board to make this book work. And in soft cover books, the end sheets are not as necessary because the entire spine is glued. There's not any stitching that goes on in a soft cover book like this, not usually anyway. So the end sheets, as Sendak put them in, aren't actually end sheets. You can see that the paper cover and the first sheet are thrown in there for us, and then they wanted us to see these end sheets, so they put them in as almost extra. So it's not exactly the same thing to make a book in paper cover as it is to make a book in hardcover or board cover. So each book also has front matter to it, which means that once you get past the end sheets, so you're going to see, oftentimes you're going to have an early title like this that leads you into the book. And then a conventional title page will have not only the title and the author information, but as you'll see over here, it's also got the publisher information. And down at the very bottom, here we have the copyright information, Library of Congress information, all rights reserved, the name of the city where the publisher was, and so on. This says 25th anniversary edition, and so on. And so you've got some of that information going on in the front matter. The front matter also often has a dedication and information about the author, sometimes information about production. So if you want to know how an author or illustrator did the book, if there was any special tricks with the paint or techniques that they used, you'll look for that in the front matter. Sometimes when a book is put together, the front matter is too crowding, and so they push it to the back of the book. So all of that front matter, such as title page, copyright, dedication, author information, you might look at the beginning of the book, you might look at the end of the book. In a picture book, the entire unity of the page going across like this is referred to as a spread or a double page spread. And this center piece here where the paging comes together is referred to as the gutter. So, and around the edges of the page, that's really typical for what you might know from school. Those are the margins. And the margins are used in various ways in a picture book. But the key thing that you need to know is that when the paper is first put out to the publisher, the trim, it likely has extra paper that's going on around the margins, and it gets trimmed down by a big chopper, a big machine that pulls it down to its actual size when the pages are cut apart and everything. So you can see that this book has what's referred to often as almost a full bleed, which is that the illustrations go right up almost to the edges of the page. And I'll just open up an example of that. You see how the illustration here goes right to the edge of the page. That had to be cut off at some point so that that would happen, so that there's a clear, there's not a line up at the top, sorry, not a line of paper up at the top here or down this other side. It's a full bleed onto the edge of the paper, and then actually across the gutter and into the next page as well. And when they say full bleed like that, they're just talking about the how the ink moves on the paper, so it bleeds off the edge of the page and bleeds over into the gutter and over the center area of the page. So cover, spine, pages, signatures, stitching or gluing, usually 16 pages to a signature, dust jacket with its flaps, the trim or the page size, and end sheets, front matter, title pages, the spread or double page spread, and the gutter and the margins. Those are all terms to use when you're talking about picture books. Thanks.